If you've played video games in your life and you have a group of friends, online or offline, with which you speak to about video games, you've probably encountered the term real game before. If you've ever heard or read this and did not know what to answer to that comment, you best believe that by the end of this video, you'll be able to tell that basement-dwelling neckbeard friend of yours that real games is an empty, nothing burger of an allegation and they should feel bad for mentioning it.
I see people who only have the Nintendo Switch and claim to be gamers!
And if you've never seen this before, it's enough of a phenomenon that a whole book was written on the subject by the MIT, so stick around too, because you never know when it could happen to you. To first understand what a real game is, we have to understand what player agency means. Player agency means having control over a game. You might control your character, make story decisions, or build things. Player control can come in two forms: operative agency, where you control the game directly, and operational agency, where you control the game more strategically. In a first-person shooter like Counter-Strike, you have direct control over your character's movements, aiming, and firing. Careful. They forgot that I'm him, bro. They forgot that I'm him. Oh no, oh god. I don't think I'm him. I don't think I'm him anymore. Oh god. Holy shit, I still got it. Let's go. This is operative agency, where you control every action directly. In a game like Stacklands, you plan strategies for how your villagers grow and gather resources. Oh no, we're gonna lose all the fucking gamers. Oh no, dude, everybody's gonna die. Oh god, dude, my hubris. No, my hubris, no! Ah, Lord, man. Do I lose all my items also? Bro, fuck you, man. Fuck this game, dude. This is operational agency. You're not controlling every action directly, like in an FPS game. Instead, you're guiding the game's systems and mechanics. It's the big difference between an FPS game and a strategy game, but neither of them are necessarily more of a real game than the other. Both have their merits, but there is a small portion of people who genuinely do believe that a real game can only be mechanically challenging to the player. This is, of course, a complete garbage take, but why? Well, it's because it's a flawed way of seeing things. Control over the games we play is a really weird can of worms to open, since the video game landscape today isn't what it was 10 or 20 years ago. Genres and gameplay mechanics have completely changed. We only have to look at a game like Factorio to raise an extremely interesting but ultimately very odd set of questions, even if you go back only a year before its release. What exactly do we control in Factorio? What does it mean to play Factorio? We have our character, this is true, and it does seem like we have some operational agency by interacting with the mechanics of the game, which is also true, but what exactly are those mechanics? We can find a clue that illustrates the answer perfectly right in the tags defining the genre of the game. Factorio isn't listed as a strategy game, but rather as an automation game. You don't directly control individual machines. Instead, you collect resources, build automatic structures that collect more resources, and then build bigger structures to achieve some kind of goal, and you start all over for the next step. We, as the player, don't control each element directly, like in a strategy game. Instead, we control the systems that control everything else. We indirectly control what is going on. In Factorio, your goal is to automate things so well that you don't need to control every part. Instead of managing everything directly, you set up systems that run on their own. It might feel like we aren't any closer to figuring out what a real game is, but we've actually made great progress so far. Factorio asks its players to be neither mechanically talented or directly involved in controlling the game, which means that a real game has different types of agency and also different levels of involvement, direct or indirect. This, in turn, poses a really interesting question and the focus of this later half of the video. How much can we take player agency away before a real game becomes not a real game? There are plenty of video games out there that try to answer this question, but one genre of game in particular has been especially driving its point home: walking simulators. This includes games like Detroit Become Human, which explores player agency extremely well. We can once again ask the same question as we did for Factorio to Detroit. What exactly do we control in the game? The most obvious answer is the story, and that's kinda true, but it's missing a bit of heft. In Detroit Become Human, you can choose whether to save or sacrifice characters. This choice can have a significant impact on the game's ending and the relationships between characters, but you are still confined to the choices the developers have put before you. The truth is that even with the story, you don't get to control it that much. Every answer leads to an ending. If you want the game to end a certain way, you can choose specific answers and it will give you that ending. You are still stuck in the storyline and you can't make your own. You're just using the playground the developers built for you the way they want you to use it. The only agency you have as a player is the journey in front of you. You don't have control over the beginning and the end of the story so much so as you have control over how you are going to get there. And neither should you. This isn't criticism in any way, it just illustrates how little control we have over these types of games. However, even if you have only a small amount of control, you still have some over the game you're playing. You're still interacting with the game and making sure it proceeds the way you want to. It turns out that you can take a pretty huge chunk of control from the players and still have a real game on your hands. Just by how acclaimed Detroit is and has been, you really can't say otherwise, not seriously at least. This brings us to what I humbly think is the most interesting question regarding control in video games. What kind of game do you get when you take all of it away? This is where a lot of conflicting opinions can never seem to agree on a consensus. Some people believe that taking away agency from the player results in having a fancy movie you can interact with, but Detroit Become Human is far from being Bandersnatch. They are completely different experiences. Some people don't have the same definition of agency and believe that roguelikes can and should take away player agency completely by randomly generating dungeons, enemies, and items every loop. Some go even further, arguing that gambling is the ultimate example of removing all player control, since everything is left to chance.
Hellfire!
We, on the other hand, will explore a totally different perspective on the matter, one that I haven't seen on the internet, at least so far, but feel free to correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong. Merely having the intention of controlling the game constitutes what taking away all player agency in a game is. This means that at the bottom of the barrel, after all player agency has been taken away, the only thing that is left is the desire of the player wanting to control the game. This might sound confusing, but follow me for a brief moment. Let's look at our case study. Cookie Clicker. This game could fit under every previous type of game we talked about. It's operative because you have to become good at clicking.
You know, my detractors, my ops, you could say. You know, they've been saying, Vernier, it's impossible. You cannot be clicking this fast. I'm here to prove them wrong, okay? I'm here to prove them wrong. I can fucking click that fast. And not only that, look, this is me slowly clicking, okay? This is me fast clicking. They just don't understand how to fast click, you know? You just need to know how to fast click, dude. It's not that hard, you know? But you just need to learn how to do it. But, you know, hey, sometimes people are really bad at the video game, you know? Like, that's the skill part of it, you know?
It's operational because you have to become good with numbers and bonuses. It's both direct and indirect because although you can click to obtain more cookies, the goal of Cookie Clicker is to automate cookie production as much as possible. There's even a storyline with you progressively taking over the world and universe with your cookies. So what exactly sets it apart from the other games? Well, it's because at its core, Cookie Clicker is designed to be an idle game. The end goal of such games is to literally have no more need for control over them. In Cookie Clicker, you start by clicking to earn cookies. Like Factorio, as you progress, you can purchase upgrades that automatically generate cookies. Unlike Factorio, those cookies have no other goal than to get more cookies. The goal is to eliminate player agency. You aim to reach a point where you don't need to interact with the game at all. However, Cookie Clicker is still very much a real game. It has everything a real game would have, we just compared it to every other game in the video. This leads us in only one direction, that video games, even if they manage to remove all need or presence of player control over them, are still real games.
What's crazy is that a game like Cookie Clicker has seen more longevity than a game like Concord, which is nuts. Concord died within like a week, right? Cookie Clicker has been around since 2013. I think that means that, truthfully, if a game is addictive and good, and the gameplay loops work, then people will play it, you know? Even if it's just fucking clicking on a cookie.
A real game is any interactive experience where the player's actions can impact the game's state in some way. Even if the player's control is minimal, as long as their actions affect the game and it responds, it's still a game. This includes starting the game at all, which will irrevocably affect the state of the game compared to when you don't start it. You will have played it, meaning that all games which can be played are real games. Even if you take all player agency away, so long as a player has the desire to play, they can have a real game experience. That is a genuinely beautiful way of looking at the problem of real games, and opens up the door to many more experiences for the years to come, all because some incredible developers had the audacity to remove the control that a player would traditionally have over their game. That's fucking dope, man. I don't know what else to tell you. That's fucking cool. Now that we've dived into what makes a real game and why the idea itself is complete horseshit, you might be wondering if there are any other misconceptions floating around in the gaming community that are just as misleading. This is why I made this video on Everhood and why clone games are gravely misunderstood in today's gaming paradigm, so feel free to watch it if you want to learn more. Thank you for watching.